Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're jumping down into the world of XRP and boy oh boy do we have some updates for you today. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Okay, don't forget to join us down in Discord, link in the description below. Let's get into XRP. Here we have XRP paired up with USDT. This is actually the 4-hour chart, but we're going to take things down a little bit lower into our hourly, okay? And we're going to start off the hourly chart, and we're probably going to work our way up into the higher timeframes as we get into this video, okay? So the first thing we want to acknowledge actually probably is going to be this move to the downside, right? We're talking about 26 to 23 cent or 23 to 26 cent being this fifth wave low point. That is no longer really viable under the structure that we have here. And that is courtesy of this particular move up here hitting and going past 54.89 cent. This basically now means that this accumulation zone down here is going to change. It's no longer going to be at this particular level. It is probably going to be a slightly different and slightly higher level. And we're going to talk more about that as we go up into the higher time frames. Okay, so the first things first is this is not the fifth wave. So then we have to kind of just zoom out a fraction, probably jump up into the 4-hour here, just so we can see what's going on. We had this structure, okay? Now looking at it, we're probably going to have to say that this here is wave 3, this here is wave 4, and this here is wave 5, and that would have to just be it, okay? So for the most part, not necessarily the best scenario, but it is what it is and we can't change it, so we're going to have to deal with what is there at this point in time. What I don't like about this structure is the length of but the kind of time that is taken into wave 2 and the shortness of wave 4. That being said, it is what it is, okay? With moving higher than wave 1, this invalidates the structure, so we cannot go down higher. This is no longer a wave 4 scenario. This is instead a nice grind upwards. Okay, so knowing that we are talking about a 335 corrective structure down here on our lower timeframes, that's important for what we're going to take a look at on the higher timeframes as we get into the daily. And we'll talk more about that later in the video. As we come back down into our hourly chart, now we make sense of this move, it's important that we start to reflect on what is going on here. What kind of structures are we having? I'm going to actually just delete this off for the chart for a second, and we'll draw another accumulation zone on in a moment. Here we can see we have a good kind of structured move, right? We can see a series of wave structures coming in. Now, the obvious, and it is the obvious one, okay, is are we in a leading diagonal this side or are we not in a leading diagonal? And I say obvious because it's not so obvious, but essentially here we would be looking for 5 waves and each of those waves would have to be 3 waves in themselves. Okay, sounds like a bit more complicated than it actually is. Basically, if I just grab a pencil, I'll draw this out for you. If we're talking about this area here being a leading diagonal, we would have 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down, 3 up. Okay, and basically that would account to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there would be a lot of overlap within that structure. Okay, so it's really simple when you know what you're looking for. So the question becomes, is that what is going on inside here? Is this a leading diagonal? Is this our wave 2 low, and is this wave 3? Okay. And basically we're going, trending upwards. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for trends. So do we have 3 waves coming down, 3 waves going up? And do we have enough of them to say that there's 5 clear definitive structures in here? And for the most part, no. That doesn't look like we have a leading diagonal. So therefore, let me actually show you. I'll show you. Okay. So we have here 1. So we class that as maybe wave 1. Come down here, we'd have this as a wave 2. Okay, then we'd have to go up to wave 3. Okay, so we'd look at this and we'd say, okay, well here looks like wave 3. Maybe this would be wave 4 and that would have to be wave 5. That's also possible, but each of these have to be 3 waves. You can't have a 5-wave structure in there. So if this is our wave 3, and then this was our wave kind of 4 scenario coming down here, then where's wave 5? And wave 5 would be a 3-wave structure, but we don't have a 3-wave structure. Instead, this is a very impulsive structure. So it doesn't look to me like we have the requirement to say that this is a leading diagonal structure. And therefore, maybe we should be a little bit cautious, right? We want to be a little bit more optimistic about it. But at the same time, the data isn't quite where it needs to be. Okay, so what's actually going on here? Well, we could argue that this is a bigger 3-wave structure going up. We can argue that this is, again, 3-wave structure coming down. Okay, so that's a 3-3 structure. Then we start talking about 5-wave structures. Okay, and this becomes a corrected 3-3-5 to the upside. Okay, here we can see we can have a pretty clear move here. We have a pretty clear 3-wave drop. Okay, so we can see within this area just here, for example, we are moving this down. We can choose where we want to put this, to be fair. This is the high point, so I take that one. And then we start to see that, okay, we're in really good traction coming up here, right? And if essentially this is the beginning of our wave 1 structure coming up to here, and this is our wave 2, then all of this is wave 3. Okay, and we're clearly in impulsive areas, looking and waiting for wave 4. So looking at this, and we've got some key areas getting hit, and we've done some invalidations, we also want to consider this entire structure. What does this look like, and what do the fib levels tell us, right? So let's go ahead and just take these off for a second and grab hold of a fib. Our fib's come from this high end just here, and we grab that there, okay, and we're going to take it to the low in June low. We're going to move this over to the low that was over here in September, and we can see that this wick has gone higher than 1.618. This tells us that this is an entire impulsive structure. Okay, even though it's 3-3-5, the 3 waves going up, even though they are not indicating to us that they are a leading diagonal, we do have this kind of threshold getting hit. Very clearly impulsive in the way that it's working. So we're looking for 4 and 5. However, in reality, you know, we run a high probability of invalidation because we don't have the 5-wave structure that you would need to have at the beginning here to really see this as an impulsive structure. So although we have this impulsive end to this move, do be prepared that eventually this is potentially going to come down lower than this point here, which would be invalidation. In the same way that we had invalidation up here of our 5th wave down lower at 54.89, we'd also have the same thing here. What would prevent us from having a 5th wave up higher is crossing down lower than 40.99. Okay, so for XRP, lots of things to consider, lots of structures to understand. And for the most part, interesting. So knowing 3 up, 3 down, looking for 5 up, actually this starts to make a little bit more sense when we start to take into consideration the fib levels of this level from, again, the September low down here. I'm going to have to eyeball it and just zoom in a little bit. Just bring this over. So if I go ahead and snap that to that wick there, and I go ahead and find the actual high there, move this fib and pull it over to here, we see that we push past the 1.618 at this level here. We push down, okay, in here, and we started to run up. Now, the interesting thing about this is we got rejected here and we pulled back in a really big way. So we've actually got a couple of different things that are going on within this little area. Okay, so straight off the bat, we want to say this is wave 1, this is wave 2. This looks like wave 3, okay? Although technically up here could be wave 3, but the structure inside doesn't make sense. So up here has to be wave 3. Then we pull back into wave 4, which is kind of what we're doing now, and then we push up into wave 5. However, there's no guarantee that this wave 3 is done yet, and that's because of the sub-wave counting. If we start to then reflect on this little area here and say, okay, well, if this is a wave 1 of a sub-wave count, and this here is going to be our wave 2 low point, then this little area here triggers our wave 3, and we still pushed up higher. So we could argue that maybe this is 1, 2, 1, 2 coming in here, pushing up, and we're still kind of pushing into wave 3. So let me draw those on. This is going to get really messy, so I do apologize, guys. There's a lot of stuff going on here with XRP. Pull back down. You could argue that maybe we haven't even finished this wave 3, 4, and then 5, and all of that have to be inside that wave 3. Okay, then we can go down deeper. Inside this wave 3, we see another clear move to the downside here. Although this one's actually more of an expanding kind of flat correction, we can't really draw down anymore on this hourly chart, but it definitely looks like a decent correction right in the middle here, and then we continue this move to the upside. So again, doing some sense checks, what's going on within these areas, right? And this is why a lot of people have been getting wrecked recently with XRP, because there's a lot going on. Again, hitting this 1.618 area, meaning that inside here, what we've also got is a very similar situation of 1, 2, this is 3, this is 4, we're going up into 5. So what we've actually got is a wave 4 structure that sits inside a wave 3 structure that sits inside a wave 3 structure. Okay, and so therefore our actual macro wave 3 hasn't finished yet. We've still got a lot of room to go up before we can continue this move to the downside. Okay, and I do think there's going to be a continued move to the downside. Now, all of this can be invalidated, of course, right, at a much later date. And obviously we're going to want to be really cautious about that. But essentially things are looking rather bullish within this structure, okay, all the way from down here at that September low. You can really see it, okay, but a lot of this is FOMO driven, okay, and one of the things I do want to kind of leave you guys with on this video, even though we've got all of this really complicated structure going on in here telling us that actually things are looking pretty good, right? And we aren't done. We are not done. We got to go up much higher, right? And that's great. We're trending up. Fantastic. But one of the things that we absolutely must not forget during these moments is that this is inside a corrective structure, okay? So although this is really good and really looking fantastic right now, be concerned that this might break down quite a bit. Okay, now this is a bit of a given regardless of the situation, right? We can be super confident and say, right, we're trending up, fantastic. And maybe this is just a 3-wave up and a 3-wave down, and this is actually the start of a trend. Also very possible, right? But one of the things, regardless of whether you believe it's a 3-3-5 ABC structure or whether you think this is a new trend and we're going to the moon, fantastic, there's always going to be something that happens at the top of this 5th wave. And that is a big drop to the downside of at least 50 to 88%, okay? So although I can't give you complete predictions on where our 5th waves are going, because we haven't really completed any of these kind of sub-wave counts, I would say that we're probably going to be looking at a nice area here. So I can go ahead and just go measure this in. And as long as we've got the signals, which I do think we have now, that we might be moving up on the kind of the hourly chart, for example, and now the DXY is cooling off a little bit. And we can see here between 57.98 and 61.5 as a nice area to be thinking about maybe completing this 5th wave structure, which would then complete our 3rd wave, which means we have a 4th wave down lower. Okay, so if we do take that and we think about this entire 3-wave structure here, and we then go and say, okay, let's hypothetically say we only go to 57.9, right? Just this area here. And, you know, we measure this entire distance. Well, we'll be looking at pulling this price down then to about 49 cents. Again, this area of consolidation in history, but also an area that is really focused within those fib levels. And then if that is the case, and we do move down from here, okay, and we have that point, then of course our next 5-wave structure will be nested inside here as well. Okay, so that'll put our 3rd wave at our macro level within this range here at between 60 and 64 cents. Then, of course, you can apply the same logic, right? Where does that next wave 4 go? Well, you'd go ahead and you would measure, let's just take the conservative low point at 60 cents down to the beginning of our wave 3, which is down here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and grab hold of our 4th wave, and our 4th wave would be down here at 47 cents. Okay, and we can go ahead and remove that, and we can then start saying, okay, well, if the price were to move from 60 cents to 43 cents, then where does our final 5th wave structure land? Okay, and again, we're talking about being up here between 63 and 69 cents. Okay, so all of a sudden, with all of these fibs, I can now go ahead and remove them all. We end up with a bit of an idea as to what might actually happen. We might have a local high just up here between 57 and 61 cents. We then pull back down towards 50 cents. We then move back up towards 60 to 64 cents, collapse back down, moving to 47 cents, before finally having that final hurrah up at 63 to 69 cents. And once that is done, then you can start to say, okay, well, if we are trending to the upside and we are hitting these targets, we can grab a fib from that low level and be conservative on it. And we pull this down, we can say, okay, well, where does our maximum correction look like later on, right? Once we complete all of this bullish move to the upside, once we decide that it's time to cool off, where does it go? Well, it's going to come down here. It's going to be between 36 and 44 cents. Okay, that becomes the new accumulation zone if we are bullish and thinking things are trending to the upside. Okay, so really interesting kind of stuff. But now let's talk about the daily chart. Okay, so we spoke a lot there about, you know, what's going on the hourly chart, all those nests and all that kind of stuff, all that bullishness going on. Let me just delete this one off. We've kind of spoken about that the other day. But here, this is the bottom of our E wave now, okay? And basically from here, we are talking about setting a trend upwards where we can start talking about maybe moving up into new all-time highs for XRP. Okay, so although we didn't move down as low as we were thinking, okay, so if we were to think super bullishly and we want to be balls about it, then actually I did that wrong. Let me go ahead and actually do this again because I need to measure it from the top of our structure here down to the bottom of our structure here, and then just move this over to that low over there. Okay, so this now talks about going up to all-time highs from the low point through to a 1-to-1 ratio at $5.61. Of course, we can trend up. We can have a 5-wave structure, which might take it completely out of here and go significantly higher. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we have got these key areas that we can be talking about later on. But for the most part, finishing this breakdown of an E wave here, which is basically our B wave low point, if we can start talking about maybe progressing upwards with XRP. Guys, I'm going to leave this video right there. If you found it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done and out of the way, hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.